It can be kind of confusing when you're trying to compare a couple different venues to really see what the bottom line is. And I wanted to walk through how I compare venues. And of course, you guys probably know me by now. I use Excel spreadsheets. And you certainly do not have to use Excel. This can be done with just a sheet of paper. I would just give each venue its own sheet of paper and write out all of the details about each venue on its own sheet. But I use Excel, so I'm going to walk you through the different things that I consider when I'm comparing venues. First of all, I have 5 different options here. This was actually based off some research I did earlier this year for my brother's wedding. He and his fiance came to San Diego to get married, so I gave him a variety of options. So the first one in this first column here is an all-inclusive center that does weddings. They do probably a wedding every Saturday, every Sunday of the year. And it basically is very all-inclusive. It included the site rental, all the tables, chairs, parking, food. It was $75 a person, but that was all-inclusive, including tax and service charge. There was appetizers, a coffee station. It also did include a hosted beer and wine cocktail hour, and then it turned into a cash bar for the reception. And I should probably mention that for this particular wedding, my brother and his wife were fine doing a cash bar. They didn't want to spend too much money, and they were perfectly fine making the compromise of having a cash bar. And, that may or may not work for you, and that might help you make a decision on what venue you choose as how the alcohol situation is. This package did include a cake, and there was no cake cutting charge. The linens, all the tables, chairs, dance floor, food service items. We didn't have to purchase any additional insurance. It did also include some very, very basic centerpieces. I did add in $500 into the budget for transportation simply because this particular venue was located quite a ways from a hotel. And by providing alcohol, I just wanted to put a cushion in there in case they hired a shuttle or even just transportation for the bride and groom to get to their wedding night accommodations. And there was obviously no guest rooms there at the venue. So that puts us down here to total. The total per person is still $75 because that was all inclusive of including the tax and service charge. The only other fee I added in there was the $500 for transportation, so an $8,000 total. If we go up here to the next column, we have a hotel, basic hotel ballroom. They did not charge a facility fee if you were buying the catering through them. They did charge an extra $1,200 to have the ceremony there, and that did include chairs. Parking was an $8 per car charge, and the guests can pay that, so it doesn't necessarily come out of your budget, but it is something to be aware of. Some hotels, in the city, it'll be $30, $40 per car, and it's nice to take that into consideration for your guests as well. Food was $53 a person plus tax and service charge, and that was a fairly inclusive package, and it did include appetizers and coffee. The bar was just a cash bar. There was no hosted alcohol at all. The cake, they gave you 2 options. You could do a $5 per person and order the cake through them, or you can bring in your own cake and they'd charge you $4 a person for the cutting service. So kind of a no-brainer, just get the cake through the hotel. Includes linens, all the tables, chairs. They did not have a dance floor, so I budgeted in another $400 there. And then I just put $150 on since the all-inclusive did include some basic centerpieces. I cushioned this with, a little bit of decor also, just so we can truly compare what each of the venues offered. Another thing you can do if you're really comparing it over here to the all-inclusive is ask this venue if they would reduce it if you didn't have those centerpieces. But for the purpose of this spreadsheet, I just added a little decorating cushion in to all of the venues. Really no need for transportation since it's a hotel. People can stay right there. And then as a bonus, they did include a complimentary honeymoon suite. And reality, you can add a whole nother row and put wedding night accommodations just to compare everything apples to apples. But I just made a note that yes, this one particular venue does include a free honeymoon suite. So that comes down to a total for food of after tax, gratuity, and then $1,700 extra of the additional fees that we had, $92.90. So it's a little bit more than the all-inclusive. And it's funny because at first glance, the all-inclusive looked considerably more expensive. So the other option was a simple ceremony and reception, and to have the reception at a restaurant. The nice thing about a restaurant is very easy, stress-free. They take care of everything. You typically don't get much time for decorating, stuff like that. But anyways, the rental fee is waived with a food and beverage minimum, which was no problem to meet. They do not have a ceremony site, so they would have used an off-site ceremony place for a ceremony, and it did have seats, but it was an extra $1,500 to book that. There's complimentary parking as well as valet available for guests. The food was only $29 a person. However, it did not include appetizers. That would have been another $7 a person. It did include coffee. And the bar, what they offered is a cash bar, but if a $500 bar minimum is not met, they would charge an additional $150 for the bartender. With 100 people, we can probably meet a $500 minimum. We could bring in a cake from the outside. However, they did charge $2 per person for the cutting fee. I included tables, linens. There wasn't a dance floor, nor was there space for dancing, so this style of reception would not have been a dancing reception. It did include all the food service and place settings. We would not need to get any additional insurance. I did add in that extra $150 for decorations, maybe some simple centerpieces. And there are several hotels within walking distance. So this comes down to $38 a person plus with an extra $1,950 in additional fees, so a little under $7,000. The next comparison is in a private home, which is my personal favorite. I think they're just lovely. Obviously, there's no reception rental fee, unless, of course, you're renting a home. But in this circumstance, we were considering a friend's home. No ceremony fee. There would be some rentals involved in setting up for the ceremony. And in this case, we would have had to budget some type of parking solution because otherwise we were asking guests to walk about a half a mile, quarter mile in heels and coats, and that's not very fair or nice. So we would need to work out some kind of a little shuttle, maybe a golf cart. Valet is pretty handy to hire them. They just jog back and forth. The catering under this circumstance, what we budgeted in for this scenario was we went ahead and did a full service catering package at $50 plus tax and gratuity. Now, we could have done a total do-it-yourself budget, and that would be an option too for a private home. So whichever scenario you want to put in, you can fill up these blanks however you like. This is just simply how we did it. With the all-inclusive caterer, it did include appetizers as well as coffee. Since it's at a private home, we can just host our own bar. I have bartenders that will just work for tips, eagerly work for tips, so we didn't have to pay extra for that. That same $300 cake from a bakery. The caterer takes care of all the cake cutting, the plates, and everything like that. The caterer also takes care of the linens. We would have to rent some equipment, tables and chairs, as well as a dance floor. It's full service catering, so all the place settings are included. Even though the caterer is insured, I recommended going ahead and taking out a liability policy just because it's a private home and, you just want to have that coverage. And I think it's money well spent in this day and age, especially if you're in the United States. Decorating, that same $150 just to, throw a couple little bit of color on the tables. Obviously no guest rooms available. So the total would still be $50 a person. The additional costs would be $3,200 because we do need more rental items, stuff like that. So the total being $9,700. And then the final one would be a community center. And I structured the budget on this one much more conservative, a lot of DIY. Now you could take this exact same DIY concept to the private home. I'm just giving you a comparison so you could see the difference. But just because this is less expensive, you can also do this less expensive option in a home. But community center is $500 to rent. This particular community center does have a nice patio area for a ceremony. Not all community centers have something like that, but they did, and they didn't charge for it. They do have tables and chairs, so there's no extra fee for that. Big, huge parking lot, so that's fine. And, like I said, we did a lot of DIY on this. So I budgeted in a local restaurant delivering food, and then we would provide all the serving dishes, Schaefer's, that kind of thing. Now, with this option, there's no appetizers, but you can certainly do it yourself or have a friend or relative provide something, or even chips and guacamole, something easy. You can tell I'm from Southern California. Coffee, easy enough to do your own coffee station. And this venue does ask for a licensed bartender, so it's a little bit more, but then you can still bring in your own alcohol. And they do that a lot just to make sure the bartender's professional and checks IDs and that kind of thing, and it helps lessen their liability. Same $300 cake from a bakery. We can serve our own cake. There's people in our group that know how to do that. We did need to rent linens for this option. There's already tables and chairs. No need for a dance floor. The whole place was wooden floors anyways. There was going to be some additional expenses for other items. We'd need plates and place settings and glasses. To be honest with you, that $500 would only cover plastic. We also needed some Schaefer's, things like that. But there's very nice high-end plasticware that you can get that works just fine. In fact, there's this bamboo, disposable bamboo that is absolutely gorgeous. People save it, not realizing that it's actually disposable. So they've come a long way in disposable ware. This venue does require you to get your own insurance, so I budgeted that in. And then I pumped up the decoration budget just because it's a community center. You're going to want a little bit more to give it a softer look, maybe some lighting or plants or something. There are guest rooms 7 miles away, so, worst case scenario, it's a cab ride, so I didn't budget anything for transportation. So I get down here, a cost per person, still that $15. However, there's almost $3,000 in extra fees that need to get added in. So here you can see just an outline of a budget for 5 different scenarios. And like I said, you don't have to use Excel, but just write out all the details and really look at the big picture before you jump on what you think is an affordable venue, only to find out that by the time you add everything that venue is missing, it ends up being very expensive. So I'm going to go ahead and make this spreadsheet downloadable for you. But like I said, don't feel like you need to use this. I'm just showing you what I use. Hope this helps.